Hey guys, welcome to ScribeWare video here. We're going to go over doing a re-inspection. And I wanted to talk about, kind of do a combination in this video of how the software works, as well as just talking about some home inspection stuff and doing re-inspections. Re-inspections, in my mind, are always kind of difficult for a lot of reasons, so we'll kind of talk about that some. You can see I'm selecting the pictures here. So I was asked to do an inspection of a roof that was replaced, as well as kind of a servicing on the furnace. So mostly we'll kind of focus on the roof here. So you can see I'm going from my residential template, and then we're going to go into an itemized re-inspect. So that changes the template. In the overview statement, I'm just going to put in a note about the scope of what I was asked to do here. So just the scope of this re-inspection is to look at the new roof and the repairs to the furnace, or the servicing of the furnace. When I did the original inspection, the upper roof was totally shot, and the furnace had a condensate leak and a gas leak. So just kind of doing the scope there. Now, whenever we do a re-inspection, you'll notice that none of the pull downs are filled in. See how all of those are blank. And the logic of ScribeWare is that if a section or a chapter, if nothing is filled in, then it doesn't print. So you see, when you're doing a re-inspection, you have the entire, your whole library, everything is available to you, but the only things that are going to print are the sections that you fill something in. So in this case, when I'm done, I should only have two sections. I'm going to have the roof and the heating furnace section. So now I'm going to go through, I'm highlighting all the pictures that I wanted to put in. This installation was, sadly, could probably be described as industry standard, but definitely had some defects with it. It's a brand new install. So I'm highlighting all my roof pictures here. You can see when they're just going red. Now we're going to kind of drag them in. So let's see. And now we'll probably just start to caption these photos. I'm just kind of checking, making sure they're all there. So I'll probably try to find an observation that this is a new roof with some red flags. So they're dimensional comp new roof red flags. So the roofing material in this home appears to be a recently installed dimensional or architectural grade shingle. These are often rated as 30-year shingles and practiced as a roof assembly. I find these last closer to 18 to 22 years or 20 years, depending on the quality of the installation. And in this case, the main issue is some of the fastening wasn't done very well. It seemed like roughly 10% of the fasteners were overdriven, so they were blasted through the shingle. And I'm saying this could impact the reliability and service life of this roof, and I'm recommending that they have additional inspection. I probably will go back. I haven't actually sent this yet. This is one of those ones you just want to think about a little bit. But that I'm going to recommend additional inspection by probably a roofer other than who put it on. This was the lower garage roof. There was no drip edge flashing, but the new roof, they didn't address that. So obviously the new roofers left all this construction debris all over the roof. So we will make a note to remove all the construction debris. You can see that our captions in ScribeWare have their separate library. So with some of these things, as I start to type, I'm able to just pick up my auto text library to make it more quick filling out the captions here. I'm trying to be specific of where I noticed stuff. That here there was construction debris in the gutters. And you can see the rows are reasonably straight, so I was probably just making a note of that. I often try to make notes of things that aren't necessarily defects, but just things that I note about the installation. Here, this was on the south side, but I never like to see a big roll or buckling in some of the roof shingles. And that sort of caught my eye, and so that's when I started checking fastening. This was a new enough roof that it hadn't been, the heat hadn't, it was winter time, the heat hadn't really bonded the shingles together yet, so I could really spot check fastening. And one of these pictures coming up here, you're going to see some of the really, I would guess about 10% of the shingles with the pneumatic fastener. They just blasted right through the shingles. Just trying to show the approximate location of where that roll was noted. So here you can see where the nail just went right through all the shingles. So that's not really done to manufacturer's installation requirements. So some of the fasteners have been overdriven. This is always tricky to know what to say about a brand new installation. You have to say something. It's really not right. In my experience checking, when I'm able to check fastening, which is often on older roofs where they've started to lose their bond and I can actually see the fasteners, most roofs are not fastened correctly and still at least work for 20 years. So there's a chance that this will sort of do its job for 20 years, but the reality is I was asked to inspect it, and I inspected the fastening of it and found quite a number of shingles that weren't done right. The person who hired me had some concerns about the skylight. Apparently it had leaked, and so I just took a few pictures that were showing kind of normal step flashings. They didn't seem particularly strange to me. I couldn't visibly see anything that would leak. Now we're getting to quite a few of these other pictures where the fasteners have been blasted through the shingle. So just trying to get all these captioned up. You put a little circle around so they know what we're talking about. It can be pretty hard to fix this at this point. There's another problem. That roof is kind of on now. So I put this picture in. This is kind of a picture of a correct fastener. So just showing they're not all done poorly. Again, trying to give like a complete representation of the installation. And I guess 5 to 10% of the shingles are overdriven. I'm going to make a note about the fact that there's drip edge flashings here. It's kind of showing the field of the roof on the north face. Just knowing the shingles aren't bonding yet. Again, this is just good practice of thinking of what are all the descriptive things about a new installation that I should report on. And I'm just trying to point out some of the things that I see. This is where I thought I was going before, but just the presence of drip edge flashing. That's one of those, they are required. So it's always one of those just basic things that I look, are they there, are they not there? And even when I'm doing a regular inspection, I might, if the roof looks well installed, I might make notes about that. Use some of these telling details that let me explain why I think it was installed well. So now I'm going to kind of work my way up to the observation. I'm going to hit the magic box that we know about, and that's going to take all of my captions and make a bulleted sequence below my observation. So I had a kind of a general observation up on the top that, you know, that there were some red flags with this installation, and now I'm going to kind of dial down some of these to show exactly what I thought was wrong. You know, that I'm going to kind of play with these captions and dial it a little bit. Now, I was using the bold and italics to just say that this was the garage roof, that first observation, so I don't believe that was the roof that was replaced, and I'm kind of highlighting that it was the south side that was buckling, and I'm getting rid of one or two of them that don't seem to kind of help, or that, you know, they're good captions, but I don't need them in this list here. Using the bold and italics can be really a nice way to kind of emphasize a few things in the report if there's certain language that you want to kind of pop out. So I'm highlighting here that my guess is that roughly 5 to 10% of the fasteners were overdriven or incorrectly driven. So that's kind of the sum total of my observations on the roof here. I think we're going to change the qualifier. I might just call it a due diligence item, that recommending additional inspection from a roofer, so you need to get someone else out to get a sense of what to do about it. But here's what we saw during inspection. Now we're going to go in and grab a photo caption. Or excuse me, a diagram, and I've got a diagram of fasteners that are overdriven. I think I got this from one of the shingle manufacturers, but this is, you know, a very useful diagram that shows exactly what an improperly underdriven, overdriven, and crooked nails, and I really saw all of those in this installation, so that's a good diagram to include. So now we're going to start making some notes about the heating system. It was recently serviced, so I obviously did the smell test. I used a combustion analyzer, which I didn't take, or a combustible gas detector. I didn't take pictures of that, but usually I can use my nose to find a gas leak, but I also did just check because we had one before, and we ran it for maybe 20 minutes or something trying to check for condensate leaks. It seems like all that was fixed. I did notice kind of an odd noise on the blower fan when it kicked on, and I mentioned this to my client who was there, and he said something about the service tech they had a part on order, so I'm guessing there was something going on with that blower fan. I didn't know exactly what. So anyway, that was how I was writing this up, is that it was recently serviced, and that no condensate or gas leakage was noted during the re-inspection, but I did note an odd noise when the blower came on. So, you know, just sort of describing everything that I knew there, and I was going to recommend they reach out to that contractor to figure out what the recommendation was. I always take a picture of the service records, so there's phone numbers and stuff there of who serviced it last, and I made a video of the system running and kind of firing and stuff, which I believe captured some of that funny noise. So anyway, here you can see I dropped the video in, but it was still downloading. So now we kind of zoomed ahead a little bit. I put a cover photo in, and now we're going to publish the report without sending an email. So we're going to pause it for a second and come back. Now you can see the report is published. So we'll open this guy up. Here you can see our cover picture. I don't have any information about the client and stuff. I was just keeping that till after this video is done. But now you can see what the report looks like. We've got two sections, the roof and the heating, and I'm kind of recommending some due diligence on both of these things. I think there were some issues with them, but I hope this video is helpful. I think ScribeWare is really convenient in my mind for doing re-inspections where you're just doing a couple of items, and it lets you use the same report you're used to doing, and you just kind of boil everything down to whatever particular things you've been asked to inspect on. Really easy to use the overview statement to say the describe what the scope of the inspection is. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and happy inspecting. Cheers.